Well, thank you all for joining us and for carving out some time this afternoon to allow us to visit Wilson Middle School. It's been a while since we've been to Wilson. Raymond, welcome. I'm going to ask Barb, I'm going to call the meeting to order and then ask Barb to call the roll, please.
Mr. Beckett?
I'm here.
Mr. Walker?
I am here also.
Mr. Navarro Jr.?
Here.
Ms. Villanueva?
Here.
President Rice?
Here.
They're all accounted for.
Thank you very much. We have a special guest with us today, a student from Wilson, to lead us in the pledge. And Principal Ariza, could you introduce your student for us?
Yes, I will. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Rogelio Ivan Barajas. Ivan is an 8th grader here at Wilson. He's a member of our school leadership class, and he's just a great guy with a great sense of humor and just very helpful around the school. So with no further ado, Rogelio Ivan Barajas. Go ahead, Ivan.
You want me to present already?
Well, Mrs. Fiscus will put the flag on the screen, and when you see that, then feel free to start whenever you're ready.
If all you guys could rise, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So, Ivan, do you prefer Ivan or Rogelio?
You guys could call me Rogelio.
Okay. Rogelio, it's nice to meet you. You did a great job with the pledge. Thank you for volunteering to do that. And for taking time out of your day, because I know that your school day is probably over, but you have other things that I'm sure are pulling at you. So I'd like to allow time for the board members to thank you in person, and they may or may not have a question for you, okay?
Yep. Thank you for letting me be here.
Absolutely. So, Graciela.
Hi, Rogelio. My name is Graciela. Thank you for being here. I have 2 questions for you. One is, what high school will you be in next year, and why are you choosing that high school?
I want to look forward to going to Davis High School, and all my siblings go to Davis High School, and one of my siblings graduated from there, so looking forward to go to Davis.
Awesome. Well, best of luck with that. Thanks again for being here.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Graciela. Raymond.
Yes, hello, Mr. Barajas. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here with us. I do have a question for you. It's what are your plans for when you graduate from Davis High School with that diploma in your hand?
Honestly, a job that will give me some good money, or I was thinking about being a lawyer.
All right. Well, you're certainly dressed for one right now, so you're looking pretty sharp, and I think you'll make an awesome lawyer just based on how you presented today and your communication skills. So once again, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your leadership at your school and everything you do to help Mr. Ariza.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Norm.
Hi, Rogelio. I'm Norm Walker. Nice. Thanks for joining us today. I just had a couple questions for you. One is, when you're at Davis next year, what are some things you're looking forward to doing at Davis? What are some of your special interests in school?
I'm looking forward to playing baseball and football. I'm a very athletic guy and looking forward to being on the Davis High School football team.
Well, I hope you have a good experience there. So
yep.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Norm. Ryan.
Well, hello, and thank you so much for being here. I don't really have any questions. I just want to tell you that The board loves hearing from our students, and we wish you nothing but the best as you continue on this year. And we want you to stay focused and stay proud and finish strong, as we say. And we look forward to watching you as you move on in your career. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Rogelio, thank you again so much for being with us this afternoon. As Ryan said, we do love to hear from our students and hear what their plans are for the future and learn a little bit about them. And we're able to do it kind of remotely right now, but when we get back into in-person session, that's when we really love to see our students and meet them and hear from them. You're welcome to stay if you want to. We do have some business to take care of today, but if you have other things that are tugging at you and need your attention, we completely understand if you have to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful for being here. Thank you, Mr. Risen, Mr. Lara. They're really good principals. I mean, they're really nice guys. They get all the students at Wilson really like them. So thank you for being here, and I'll leave right now.
Okay, Rogelio, thanks again. Take care.
Yep.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
week. Okay, next item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement. Gracielo, could you read the land acknowledgement for us today?
Yes. Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. The people of Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture. We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today. We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect and a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. It also honors the truth. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Thank you, Graciela. As you all may be aware, we started this tradition and board practice of reading the land acknowledgement last spring, following the partnership that Superintendent Green developed with the Yakima Nation. And the board rotates that reading, the responsibility for that reading through each of our meetings. So that will usually, unless there's something that happens, you won't see board members reading it twice in a row. But it kind of grounds us in our working relationship with the nation and gives us an appreciation of the environment in which we live. I neglected at the beginning of the meeting to announce that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the district's YouTube channel, probably the beginning of next week. And I think that's all I need to say about that. So, if you want to review this, just check the district's Facebook page, YouTube page, and you'll see this meeting listed there after the beginning of next week. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the school presentation. We are pleased to be able to.
Actually, Martha, I think there's acknowledgements.
Oh, yes, I missed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, President Rice. It's my pleasure today to share with you a year of recognition certification to Director Raymond Navarro. Congratulations, Director Navarro. This is from WASDA, and it's on the screen right now. It says 10 years of board service and recognition. for your valuable decade, making sure that we are progressing as a district and representing our community. The letter that I received from Tim Garcha, who's the executive director of WASDA, states, each year WASDA recognizes school directors for reaching milestone years of service on their local school board. We appreciate the dedication of each school director and applaud their efforts on behalf of their students, staff, and community. And we look forward to getting the certificate to you. And thank you so much. We know the certificate is not what you're here for, but it's a small way to recognize the tremendous effort that you put forth every day. So thank you, Director Navarro.
Congratulations to Raymond. I also wanted to ask if the picture on the certificate was when you started on the board.
I believe so. No, I didn't even see the picture, to be honest.
I had the same question.
I'm old, Norm. That's been 10 years, so. Oh yeah, that's okay. I get it. I didn't even see that. I thought I saw a little kid there, but I didn't see my face on there. But okay, got you, Norm.
Okay, now we are at the point in today's agenda where we get to hear from Wilson Middle School staff on an update to the board. This is we do this about once a month for most months of the school year, but because of holidays and such and our meeting schedule, it takes about 3 years for us to rotate through the school district so that we can hear from all schools. So it's been a while since we've been to Wilson, and we're pleased to be able to be here to, for at some point in time, we'll be able to get back into the buildings. But Principal Ariza, you're here, and I'm going to turn this over to you and your staff.
That's great. Well, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here with you all and great to see you. It's just a great opportunity for us to, present information about our amazing school, our staff, and our students. And, as many of you know, we are the home of the Cavaliers, and we're very proud of that. And so it is great to see you all again, and welcome Mr. Beckett to Wilson Middle School. Wish we were here in the building and in person. I just think it's a lot more fun, just to be in person, but being the circumstances, we'll make the best of it. So welcome. So first, I want to take a minute to introduce our what I would call our A team, but I call it the W team for the Wilson Winners team that will be helping throughout this presentation. We're all members of the MTSS team, and we also have a few students that will be sharing with you as well today, and they will be introducing themselves by name when it's time for them to speak. Before we get started, though, we did want to take time to just say thank you, to say thank you to the school board for your service, this being School Board Appreciation Month. And it is the last day of the month, but it still counts, right? So we're going to go out and with a bang and just say thank you so much. And we have just a quick video of some students that personally wanted to say thank you to you. So Ms. Anderson, if you can play that video, please.
I wanted to take a second to say thank you for everything that you do for our district. You come to work every day to provide what's best for our students.
Thank you, Yakima School Board, for all that you do for our school.
Thank you, School Board, for everything you have done for us over the past year and this year.
Hello, I'm Anna Kayaki, and I am ASB Secretary of Wilson Middle School, and I would love to say thank you for the Yakima School District for helping Wilson and all the other schools. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you all so much for just coming to school or work and being a great role model for us students and just being great people on top of that. You guys make our school as amazing as it is.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you, Ernesto. Ernesto, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My apologies. Technology, right? You got to love it. And so I just want to thank Barbara for agreeing to do the presentation, because I didn't trust my connection over here at Wilson. So I appreciate it. But yeah, it was short and sweet, but really from the heart. And we're just very thankful. And just on behalf of the whole Wilson community, to the school board, we're just very grateful for your time, your effort, your support throughout the years. Many of you, many decades, as we just found out today with Raymond. Just very appreciated. So thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue on the presentation. And so Barbara, just whenever it's time to move to the next slide, you want me to just say next slide? Is that, want to do that? Okay, awesome. All right, so just in front of you there, and I'm not going to read it to you because I know that's in front of you there, but it is our vision and mission statement. And what I will mention is that every year we do take the time at the beginning of the year to review our mission and vision statement, and to listen to all of the voices in the school, and wherever we need to make adjustments to our statements or to our language, we want to make sure that we do that, and to make sure that it represents the efforts of the whole school system. We review our statements through a lens of high expectations, equity, and social emotional opportunities for all students to achieve. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows you who are members of our MTSS team. And as you can see, our MTSS team is comprised of committed staff that represent most of the instructional and specialty areas that contribute to the overall system. These members have taken on leadership roles and are committed to continued improvement and overcoming the challenges that we face to providing a safe, equitable learning environment for all of our students. And you will be hearing from several of them during this presentation. Next slide, Barbara, please. Yeah. Okay, you're familiar with this graphic, right? And so I just want to say that, the YSD compass is our compass. It's a Wilson compass as well. And our school improvement efforts are aligned with the goals of the YSD strategic plan. We take our role as a middle school very serious in preparing our students for the ultimate goal, which is, graduation on time, and with the tools necessary to be successful even beyond high school. And so many times we feel like the lost child in the whole system, but I gotta tell you, we are Wilson. We just have a very efficient and proud staff, and we do try our best to get them prepared for high school. Next slide. And this slide here, this slide is just here to point out that we are committed to being a data-driven school. And you will hear more in detail information on how we are using data to create our action plans and to improve our system in order to help students achieve to their highest potential. And so you'll be hearing a lot more, like I said, more details and examples throughout the presentation. So to start us off with that, here's Samantha.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here with you. I am a 7th grade math teacher at Wilson, and I am also an administrator intern this year. So kind of getting the best of both worlds, learning a lot along the way. Next slide, please. So I attended Wilson 20 years ago, and then went to Eisenhower, graduated, went off to college, got my master's, came back and teach here. So looking at the demographics it's always important, right? But it's changed so much in 20 years from when I went to school here. So just a good thing to keep in mind as educators, that we know our demographics. So this data really drives like our teaching and our learning. And as much as it evolves over time, so do we. Knowing this data helps drive our academic and social decisions. And there's a shift to strategies that will best support the students who need it. This shift is shown in our school goals, and we have created and working towards achievement. And so you'll see those as they come up. So there they are.
My name is Orlando Lada, and I'm one of the assistant principals at Wilson Middle School. Thank you for having us and giving us this opportunity. As Mrs. Howell and Mr. Araiza were talking about the need and necessity for Wilson to be a data-driven school, the biggest complaint that we've had in the last few years with COVID and everything is the lack of data. And so when we finally got the SBA data, we were like, yay, we want this data, yay. Oh, not that data though, because we were looking at the specific data, and it was it was pretty, it was almost disheartening in a sense because of the percentages and such. And so you can look at it in two ways. You know, one, we're thankful that we have this data. And then two, we take it as a reflective and more of a challenging piece. And the reflective part is really important for us here at Wilson because we want to make sure that we are always reflective, therefore driving our instruction based on our data and the needs of our particular students. And so when we look at our data, the proficiency rates, they're not as what they should be. However, as I said, it just fosters some hope for us. And again, being reflective practitioners, it is so important for us to understand that these are numbers that are challenging, obviously, with this area that we've not really navigated with COVID and remote learning and back to in-person and then remote. It's just another opportunity for us to grow. And I'm always wanting to be that reflective person. And you're going to hear that word a lot if you talk to me a little bit, but being reflective and also that data-driven practitioner is very, very important. And so as we go through the slideshow, you're going to see that a lot of our key items that we're working on here at Wilson are driven by this data, but then also specific student needs for the kids over here at Wilson.
Hi, my name is Brandon Hover. I'm one of the 8th grade science teachers here at Wilson Middle School. This chart that we're looking at here really shows a lot of the data like Samantha and like Orlando are talking about, driving our teaching, driving our learning decisions. And one of the big pieces that we like to look at is our SGP data, or student growth performance data, especially related to language arts and math. And one thing that Ernesto brought up our SIP, our student improvement plan. And one of the areas that we're always really looking at and cognizant of is how our overall student population is performing versus our ELA population, or English language ELL population. And so with this data, we're really encouraged, especially when you're looking at the math here, the gap between like our overall student population and our ELL population in math, it's not that big. And it also shows growth in both areas. So 50 points and above is showing that like students are outperforming like peers. In our language arts data, it's not quite where we want it to be, but at the same time, it does show a closer gap between our overall population and our ELL population. And so I can tell you all, being a science teacher, we still have, as we're developing our SIP goal, we're cognizant of what we want to do as a science department, but also how can that intertwine with math and language arts goals. So this year we actually chose a goal in science that's more math related, related to graphing and analyzing data to help beef up those areas and at the same time improve student performance in science as well. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm John Gonzalez. I'm the assistant principal at Wilson. This data we're looking at is from the Center of Educational Effectiveness, the CE data, and this is staff perception. And is the I'm on the wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a behavior data. I'm sorry. This is a supportive and learning environment. This is a student data, and it's from the CEE data collection, and it talks about student perception of how this school staff and adults work with them. And we are scoring very high in the 90s with our data and how we get along with kids. There's 71% of overall is positive. As we compare this to high improving schools and nationwide averages, Wilson High School reaches above and beyond those benchmarks. So the dark blue is where we want to be, because it's almost always true. These statements, often true is the light blue, sometimes true, and seldom true is the orange, and almost never true is the dark red stuff. So we want those blue hues, and we're doing very well in our building. It's 87% overall of the students throughout this whole segment of the student responses in this whole area, but in these areas we're scoring extremely high.
Yeah, so this next data point here speaks to our attendance trend data. And so I think district-wide, the goal is to improve our, re-engage our students right after this COVID, interruption to our normal school days year. Really, how do we get students engaged? How do we get them to come back and just keep them here once they come back? And so this trend data kind of shows good trend for us. It is something that, this year and last year, it still is a challenge to just to improve our regular attendance of all of our students. One of the areas that we're working very hard on right now, and we've put together a committee here at the school, is to try to connect with students that are not coming to school. And we all have we have about 5% of our kids, maybe down now to about 3% of our kids that we are just not seeing them. We're seeing them maybe once or twice a month. And we continue to, the effort to try to reach out to them, calling every day. We have a team comprised of counselors. We have our MTSS interventionists. We have ESD staff that are also helping us with reaching parents and doing home visits. And little by little, we're chipping away. Our goal is to re-engage and have all students attending regularly at the school. We're trying to get at least 95% of our students to engage regularly, which is, to miss 3 or less days a month. And so that's a big challenge right now for us, but we're still, like I said, we have a good team put together, and we are continuing. We're not giving up. We're continuing to reach out and engage our students. Next slide.
This behavioral trend data is pretty telling. And the idea is to have, let me back up a little bit. We're looking at the percentage of kids that are excluded in response to a behavioral procedure. And so what we're looking at is this middle piece data. We're in 2016 at 13.8%. And that steady decline in exclusionary practices, I think, is a pretty affirmative sign that our interventions are working. And that's one of the things that we are very conscious about currently as the administrative team and is that we want to make sure that we are intervening with these kids based on their specific needs. It's not a matter of excluding kids from classes. That's not our desire. Our desire is to give these students the tools socially, academically, and emotionally to be successful citizens. And that's the biggest thing for us is we want to make sure that as we build relationships with these kids and we are talking about behaviors and consequences, we are also giving them the tools. And that's an important piece for us. And so as we look at this trend in data, as it's going down from 13.6, about 10.8% in 2019, we're really encouraged with this because we have a lot of other things that we were implementing in our social emotional curriculum here during our CABS time or advisory time, if you want to call it that. But again, we're just being very, very aware of how we are intervening with these students as they have behaviors that we need to intervene on, but just not being the traditional exclude them from class per se. It's just more of let's work on that social emotional piece. Let's work on the equity piece. Let's work on this being a good citizen and a good functioning citizen here at Wilson and then beyond.
Thanks, Orlando. Here we are with the staff perception highlights. This is based on the 9 characteristics of high-performing schools. And this segment is in regards to readiness for change, and it's I versus they perspectives. 96% of our staff welcome new ideas. 95% say colleagues welcome new ideas. In the lower area is instructional staff, and that is 98% versus 96% for the entire staff, 94% on the lower bar versus the 95% on the higher bar. And it just shows you that our host staff is working hand in hand, and it's looking really good as far as there is no red areas in this area. That's all blue with a little bit of orange.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Gonzalez. Our school goals. So these are our 3 school goals. The first goal is attendance related, and Mr. Riza spoke to this, then that we have 90% of students attending daily. And COVID has had an impact on this school, but we're trying really hard to reengage all these students who are missing school. Like Mr. Reza said, we have the committee that's focused on outreach for through phone calls, emails, home visits, just trying to connect with these students and get them here. So goal number 2 recognizes that we need to be working on closing the achievement gap between all students and the multilingual and students with disabilities groups. We see the highest impact when these groups are showing this growth. So we know that these strategies that are good for multilingual students and students with disabilities will benefit the entire classroom. So it's really important that we focus on that. Goal number 3 is our social and emotional goal. And this is even more important, right, over the last couple years, a little bit of craziness in the world, that our students feel a sense of safety and just respect and like an overall feeling of wanting to be here. And so you'll hear more about the programs that we're implementing to meet this goal in the upcoming slides.
This particular slide is merely going to introduce you to our next slide, which is our key intervention events. And so when we look at the literacy focus and the mathematics focus and the SEL focus, as I said, in the next slide, we're going to be talking a little bit about more specifically what we do with these. But before we get to that one, that's fine. Before we get to that, we just wanted to talk briefly about each of these and just kind of introduce what our interventions are and what our building focuses are. And so when we are working on these interventions, we are always keeping in mind the focuses that we have for each of these 3 categories. For the literacy focus, we were looking at a multi-level and integrated component for each subject area. Our mathematics focus, always continuing to look at that accelerated piece for the accelerated strategies. And then everything is embedded within, or excuse me, SEL is always embedded within our instruction and within our intent there. And so as we get to the next slide, we're going to talk more about the interventions and such.
All right. Hi, Brendan Hover again. One of the biggest things that we implemented this last year was our PBS rewards. And so in the past, we'd done something called Cavs Cash, where we hand out tickets to students, hard copies. And the problem that we discovered was it was really hard to recognize students anytime, anywhere, and make it meaningful to kids as well. And so we wanted to implement a system that would allow teachers, trying to implement that 10-to-1 ratio of positive interactions with kids versus redirections and things like that. And so the digital PBIS reward systems allows us as a staff, not just teachers, to recognize any student on campus anywhere, even if we're remote, even if we forget about it and we do it from home. And then students that can accumulate these points, they can have fun with them. Lots of students on campus just like having competitions with their friends to see who can accumulate the most points, like it's a video game. But also teachers have stores that they can buy supplies and goods at. Some of them are fun supplies such as candy or prizes. Kids really love Hot Wheels this year. It's crazy. Hot Wheels are making a big comeback. But they could also buy like pencils or paper or whatever they want. And we have raffled off a number of prizes, including, I think a smart TV was the coolest thing he raffled off, but some kids have really loved the Lego projects that he's raffled off. I had a raffle for a pie in the face in my class. And so the biggest thing that we're really staff is just getting to know the PBIS system and all the different positive ways that it allows us to recognize students on and off campus. Thanks so much.
So, hi, I'm Yvonne Robinson. Oh, can you go back one slide? We've got thank you. We're going to talk about each of the bullets quickly. So I'm Yvonne Robinson. I'm one of the counselors here at Wilson. And I just want to say we have a 3rd counselor this year, and it's been so wonderful to have 3 of us to divide the 900 kids. So yay. Okay. But my talking point is around SEL and the Character Strong curriculum. So we've used Character Strong here at Wilson for 4 years, and it's been really helpful to have a structured curriculum. It's been very effective this year. It was a little tricky in virtual learning, so it's been very nice to be in person. and how we structure our advisory classes. On Mondays, the kids meet with their advisory teacher for 20 minutes to go over organizational skills, look at their planners, plan the week, what their homework will be. Then on Wednesdays, we have a half an hour of our CAVS time, which is dedicated to the social emotional lessons. So this week, for example, tomorrow's not Wednesday. On Wednesday of this week, the 7th graders will do a lesson on emotional regulation, just learning some strategies around that, learning about the difference between a low level emotion and a really high level emotion, just learning the vocabulary on how to identify those things. So we've had some good success around that. And we also tie that, we wrap in the Character Strong lessons and our CAVS committee with the PBIS group. So if there are any little behaviors that are popping up, we reinforce it through our lessons in the CAVS class. Thank you.
Sam, if you don't mind, let's just go ahead and skip over to the math acceleration.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. Sorry everyone. I was waiting on attendance committee. Math acceleration. So we use the newly adopted math curriculum from McGraw-Hill, which I do love. So thank you for that. We are accelerating students by teaching grade level standards, and then we're filling in the gaps where we see necessary. And we can do this with our resource rooms, our small groups. We have an after school math opportunity for students that we see that need it. Well, it's open to everyone, but we definitely target those kids who we see have the holes that we need to fill. We have acceleration also in our honors math classes. So I teach 7th grade math, and those students go on to 8th grade algebra and earn high school credit. And it's been a huge deal. Like kids in my 7th grade classes who aren't even in honors, like they strive for that algebra class. So it's pretty awesome to see that acceleration. So that's where we're at.
And as far as the ELA acceleration opportunities, we've looked at several things. We've looked at strategies as a department that would benefit all of the kids. So in addition to, let's say, interventions for multilingual learners, we've looked at those strategies that could benefit every child. And we've kind of utilized those strategies within multi-subject areas. For example, in PE, when they're during CAVS class and PE class, they'll look at conventions when they're writing in their journals or their planners. And so we're looking at multi-level and multi-curricular type interventions in that way. Our Read 180 teachers are also making a special effort to identify those high needs kids and teach them how to track their RI scores, for example, at the beginning, middle, and the end of the school year, with the targeted RI goal to be their little paycheck at the end of the school year. And giving them an opportunity to track that has been beneficial because it's a hands-on piece for those students, and then they have a little bit more buy-in because it is theirs and it's theirs to own. Another thing we've been doing as departments is working on data cycles, and those data cycles are things that, again, we have to be very reflective and very conscientious about what we are talking about, what interventions are working, which ones are not, and then most importantly, do we shift gears, and how do we shift gears in order to make it more effective? Mr. Rice, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Taryn for that last piece, okay? And one of the things that we're most proud of is the active involvement of our students here at Wilson. And with Rogelio, getting him here was amazing to see, because he entered that leadership class as just kind of a subdued, kind of an introvert, I guess you could say. Socially he was fine, but when you get him in front of a group, he just kind of clam up. But seeing him, I was just really, really proud of the way that he conducted himself here today. And we have another student here. We have our ASB president. We wanted her to talk a little bit about leadership class and the activities they've done to involve more students, to get it a more broad hand, I guess you could say, to get more kids involved within the idea of leadership. And so Taryn Byrne, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you taking your time. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to say a quick thank you for this opportunity to be here. I'm really excited to speak. So this is my second year in ASB. Last year with COVID, we really didn't get to do that much with student involvement. We tried, we would make weekly videos just to get our faces out there. But this year we've kind of come in with a different focus. We are trying to get students involved and to get excited to be back at school. we have had quite a few spirit weeks just to see some more student involvement. And then we are also beginning to focus on showing some cultural presence, which is something that my group is starting to work on over the last few weeks with being online. And we have gotten to experience new faces and really get to talk to students and interact more within the school, which has been super fun for me to experience this year. And then also teacher interaction and getting teachers' opinions on stuff that they see us needing to do around the school. And we've been trying to focus on that too.
Thank you, Taryn. So yeah, that concludes our presentation. I know that was a lot of information, and so I'm sure you'll have some questions for Taryn. But we'll, you know, the rest of us will also field some questions if you have any for us.
Thank you, Ernesto. That was a very quick presentation of a whole lot of information. I know that the board has had a chance to review this presentation prior to the meeting, but now that they've heard it, if they want to come back and ask some more questions, even after the meeting has concluded, they can just contact you. Correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. For the time being, any questions or comments from board members?
Hi, this is Norm. I'd just like to compliment you on the work you're doing in terms of developing a positive school climate. It seems that a lot of really good things are happening, and middle school tends to be one of the most challenging places to develop that. So again, congratulations to your entire staff. I had one question regarding the math scores, and I'm pleased to hear that people, and I've heard it from other teachers around the district, they're liking the McGraw-Hill curriculum. But I'm wondering if one of the functions of a lower math score is the alignment of McGraw-Hill with the Smarter Balanced Assessment, because sometimes our statewide assessments are not really aligned all that well with the curricula we're using. So I just wondered if you had a sense of that and if that could be a factor in the low score.
I can speak to that a little bit. Teaching 7th grade math, McGraw is really well aligned. I was also on the adoption committee, so I might be a little biased because we did look at that a lot about whether it was aligned or not. I think the data that you're seeing from the fall is that it's rough. Just coming back from COVID and not having kids in seats. They were learning online last year, but we were really down to about 3 hours a week instead of 5. Like it looked different last year for these students, and coming back in the fall, we don't normally give an SBA in the fall. So I think there's a few different reasons. I also think that there's going to be some gaps, but I do see this curriculum working out in the long run. And after having a whole year, we adopted it during that COVID year, which is kind of hard. So this year will give us a better sense after we've taught it in the classroom for an entire year and then giving the SBA in May. So maybe that's a really good question to come back to after we give the May one, to kind of circle back and reflect on that.
Well, thank you. And I also think that points that out, that the fact that that assessment was done in the fall doesn't make it a real valid assessment, because it's not right after kids have had curriculum, and also it comes back to the summer loss of learning. So I think there are several factors that play into that. Thanks again.
Yeah, except for what? We're going to have so much growth. Like, I'm so ready, right? I'm so ready.
Thank you, Norm. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Yes, I do have a comment. Mr. Rice, I just wanted to thank you. I commend you for your leadership, and also that of the administrators, all the teachers that spoke today, all the staff. We're definitely in some challenging times, right? We've been through some challenging times, and they continue. So it's awesome to hear and to feel that energy, right? That enthusiasm and that we can do it attitude, right? Despite what's going on in our community, in the world, and so forth with the pandemic. So just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for all the work you've done and continuing, right, to provide that best quality education that our kids do deserve, no matter what's going on. So I just wanted to thank you all for that extra mile you're going, and the extra work you're doing, because I know it's not easy working with COVID and having to deal with everything that comes along with it. So once again, Mr. Araiza, thank you so much. And to all the teachers, your administrators, everybody that's involved at Wilson Middle School, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Raymond.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And yeah, it's just something that I can be very proud of, that I do work very hard at surrounding myself with amazing people that make, it's very hard to make me look good, but they really do try. And so, but it's, yeah, just an amazing people. I'm very proud of that. And so thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate it. And yeah, we are working very hard. And, we talk about this as a staff that, yeah, there are challenges that are coming up, but never once have I ever heard, we can't do it, or we're not going to do it, or, we're always looking for ways on how we can do it and how we can improve. And kids deserve our best. And so that's what we try to give them every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto, and thank you, Raymond. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions, Martha. Thank you so much, Ernesto and staff, for the presentation. It's always really good to visit the schools, even if it's virtually, and hear more about all the good work that you all are doing. It's really one of the highlights of our work as a board. During the presentation, I heard, I forget who was presenting, but I heard a comment about the third counselor that you all have now, and the impact that's made. I'm hoping that can you share with the board a little bit more about the impact that's had on students? Like what does that actually mean, and what are some of the outcomes that you've seen from that?
I can speak to that really quick. So I'm Yvonne. I'm one of the counselors here. So our third counselor has allowed us to divide the population into thirds. So each of us has roughly 350 versus whatever the number was. So we've been able to spend more time individually with students who are struggling academically. We have used students self-identify when they want to join one of our counseling groups, and we've been able to offer, when the year ends, we will have offered over 25 different counseling groups with between 8 and 10 kids in it. So it's a huge impact. And before, when there were just 2 of us, we really had to limit that because it would take days of our time. And now we can each just dedicate a certain chunk of time and still be available for individual kids and staff and parents. And so those are just a couple things, the individual and with the groups. Those are 2 things right off the top of my head that have really been impacted.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And my next question is a kind of a 30,000 foot level question. If you had, and I guess this is to the staff and to you, Mr. Araiza, if the board gave you a magic wand to improve student outcomes in your school, what would you do with that magic wand?
Wow, that's a great one. Before I answer that, I just want to add one other thing. One other great thing that with adding our third counselor is that we added a bilingual counselor also. So that's also brought some great access for part of the population and parents. Also, so it's been a great addition as well. That's a good one. I would just say, if we just kept all things the same, if we could just get kids here, every single student here every day, for the full day, kind of erase all of their, ACEs, they're coming with us from home. I think that would be, if we could just swipe that away, we would have, I think, an amazing time here at school and with students, and just tremendous growth. And I mean, really what we fight a lot is we just want kids to be here, every day, and especially those that are most at risk and most in need. If we can just get them here every day, I think that would make a big impact. I think Brandon is wanting to share something. Brandon, do I see you?
No, I think you could have hit it. If I had a magic wand, I just had a big talk with my kids since we got back live today, which I was super and a lot of, and we had great attendance today. So speaking of what Ernesto did, one of my classes, everyone showed up, and I can tell you that's only like the 4th time all year where one of my five classes had perfect attendance. And so I tell us, like, if you can't be here, like, then we need to, communication is big key. So student accountability is such a big thing. And I talked to them, like, virtual is probably not going away in their future, and they have to find a way to be successful with this extra roadblock that's kind of been thrown in their path, and they can't use it as a scapegoat on why they're going to not be successful in their future. And so they have to use it as a point of building character, showing grit, and they overcame these obstacles rather than allowing them to hinder their success in the future.
Mr. Gonzalez, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think we're working really, really hard when we're doing our state assessments that we test everybody, that we get no zeros, because what we found in the past is that when we have to average those zeros in, it really punishes the kids that are put in all the effort into to try to get the best scores they can. So when we're doing the assessments and going through those cycles, we're working so hard that we get everybody tested, and there will be no zeros on those tests, on those assessments.
Any other magic wand wishes? That was a great question, Graciela. Anything else?
Just a final comment. I really like that question because I think it really highlights the certainly the passion that each of you have for the work that you do. But I think it really helps inform the board as we move forward and do our planning and the whether it's budget decisions or whatever that we have before us. That feedback really helps me at least kind of understand what really we should be focusing on. So I appreciate that. Thank you again for all the work that you're doing. And Taryn, loved hearing you. We really love hearing students participate and share their thoughts. So thank you so much for being here. And I think that's all I have. Thanks so much, Martha.
Thank you, Graciela. Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay. I want to just add my appreciation for all that you all are doing. I appreciate Mr. Ariza and all the staff and the students who have joined us today. I know that this is above and beyond what your day normally would look like, and we very much appreciate you gifting us with your time and as part of this presentation. I did want to extend my appreciation also for your focus on attendance and the extra focus on those who aren't there every day. Because what we know, right, is that if they're not there, they're not going to be learning. If they're supposed to be there, they need to be there. And I appreciate all of the extra work that staff is undertaking in order to make that a reality. And the focus on data. The data is important, but it's but one piece. And the other pieces are addressed with relationships and the fact that you now have a third counselor, which I'm really happy to hear the outstanding reactions to the third counselor. That was not a small thing for the district to do, to add an additional counselors into the district staff. But we know that it's important, particularly these days when we've got so many students and staff who are struggling. To be able to provide that extra support is really important. So again, thank you for your presentation, and I'm going to let Dr. Green have the last word if he wants, and we'll close this portion of the agenda out when he is finished. Dr. Green.
Thank you, President Rice. It's always a pleasure to hear from Wilson, my old stomping grounds. I echo some of the statements about Ernesto and his leadership, but I also then want to highlight what he said, and that is that he is surrounded by great people. I think about the work that Jennifer Brownlow, Yvonne Robinson have done for years. 3 of my 4 children went through Wilson, and they had nothing but wonderful experiences because of the people there. Brandon, however, he was, what I know about him is, as a parent, I can tell you with children at 2 of our high schools that he is by far the teacher that communicated the most with me as a parent. And if I'm assessing that experience just as a normal parent in our system, then he would be far and above top tier in my mind. So I appreciate his outreach, because parents don't often know exactly what's happening in the classroom, but they do know when staff members care. And I could tell that he cared about what my son Easton was doing, and he definitely needed to have his finger on Easton for at least a year and a half while he was there, or a year while he was there. So thank you to each of you, and thank you for supporting Ernesto, for making him effective and the leader that he is. Ernesto, thank you for leading with Orlando, with John, with your administrative intern as well. I want to thank the board also for being ahead of the curve and supporting the strategic plan and making sure that we had a strategic plan that focuses on attendance. It's no mistake that Wilson is focusing on attendance and carrying on the importance of what we've outlined in that strategic plan. So thank you. We're also focused on the transitions as well, and the support of the board in making sure that we had counselors is something that I want to highlight also. We're ahead of the curve with the state. I think we see legislatively that there's consideration for recalibrating the allocations for funding of counselors and mental health supports. I'm proud to say that we're ahead of that curve, and that's a direct tribute to the support of the board in planning ahead for what our students need, even without a pandemic situation, which we do have. We've known that we've needed more counseling and mental health supports for years. So thank you, and I appreciate the wonderful presentation today. And I'll just go ahead and close it out and turn it back over to President Rice.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wilson team.
Thank you all so much for being here. You're more than welcome to stay. We do have a little bit more business to take care of, but if you have other things that are pulling at your shirt tails and saying, pay attention to me, we completely understand if you have to leave. But thank you so much for everything that you've done and that continue to do for the students in Wilson. Have a great rest of your week. Okay, next item on our agenda are reports. And first we have reports from members of the board. Are there any board members who wish to share a report with the rest of the board?
Hi, I'd like to share one thing. I have registered and will be attending the Leadership WASDA leadership training just for my own personal and professional growth as a board member. And so that entails 5 two-day training sessions in Olympia. First one is February 10th and 11th. And just like to thank Barbara for helping me make arrangements for that, but that's coming up. So I'll have, hopefully at the end of that, some interesting things to share with you and report with you in the future.
Thank you, Norm. That is really valuable training. I went through one of the first series that they offered. And I know from talking with folks that it only gets better every year, that every time that they offer that. It is offered every other year. And board members, I think, have to have a minimum of 2 years. Is that right? 2 years of service in order to apply for the Leadership WASDA training. There are other training opportunities coming up. I know Graciela signed up for something. Can you remind us, Graciela, what you signed up for?
It was the new equity training that is required of board members. Unfortunately, it's been canceled, so
oh no,
I won't be attending that this week after all.
Well, that's too bad. But it saves you a trip to Spokane, right? So hopefully that training will be offered a little closer to home. I know that it's also being offered over on the west side later on in February or early March. All of that information is available on the WASDA website. And as Graciela indicated, the training, the equity training that WASDA is undertaking was written in through a legislative bill that passed, I think, last year. And so the requirement is that all school directors in the state participate in that training. So at some point, we will all have had access to that training, and hopefully it will be coming to a location closer to us than Spokane in February. We also are right in the beginning the Legislative Week on the Hill. Legislative conference was yesterday, and I know I was there. I saw Jenny there. Thank you, Jenny, for being there. I don't know if other staffers or board members were there. There were like 300 people that were taking part in this virtual legislative conference. I thought it was very good. The information that we received was very pertinent to what's going on in Olympia right now. And so this week on the Hill, we are meeting virtually with all of our legislators. We had 2 meetings today, one with Representative Corey and one with Senator Honeyford. The others are scattered throughout the rest of the week, culminating in one at 2 o'clock on Friday with Representative Mossbrooker from the 14th. They're only 15 minutes long, so it's a quick in and out. How do you do? It's nice to meet you. Here's what we want to tell you. And then we're gone. But it's important to maintain those relationships with those legislators. You'll remember that WASDA, WASA, and WASBO, which is the Business Officers Organization, created a Hot Topics document based on how each organization determines their legislative priorities for the year. And those priorities are staffing allocations, budget stability, student transportation, and capital funding. So we've spoken with 2 of our 6, and we'll be speaking with Senator King tomorrow morning. And I'd have to look at the calendar because at this point, time of the day, I'm kind of zoomed out. I don't know that I have any other reports from the board except for the review of the monitoring report, not monitoring report, the board report on 1000.3.1. This is a policy that we reviewed earlier in January and wanted to make sure that all board members were here for this conversation. For the most part, all 5 board members participated in the SurveyMonkey that followed our discussion as a board about this policy. And for the most part, all 5 board members agreed that the board was either fully or at least partially compliant with all elements of the document. We did have some comments in there, and rather than read those, because a couple of them are a little lengthy and my voice sounds like it's giving out. So I'm wondering if the board members that commented wanted to elaborate on their comments or something else.
I can speak to my comments whenever
Okay.
you like.
Whenever you're ready, Raymond.
Sure. So I think also this, what I'm about to say is going to tie in with the evaluation. I don't know if we were going to review that or not, but we may have skipped over that. So I'm going to address both. And so, but please know that what I'm going to say is and really in all due respect to the board and to my fellow board members. So I want to make that clear. My intent in bringing this up is just so that we continue to focus on the work that the board is engaged in, right? Especially during these times. But I just feel that even though I agreed that the board is in compliance with this policy, that there's some sections that I believe, in my opinion, that we're partially in compliance. And it has to do mainly when we have discussions regarding some of those hot topics, right? Like COVID and school calendar and some other of those hot topics, equity and so forth. And what I see is that if it's a discussion, it often turns into arguments, right? And we engage in displaying inappropriate interpersonal communication skill, and interpersonal communication, like raising our voice, yelling, our nonverbals can kind of, and I understand these are very, very, these topics are really, they're hot topics, right? And so they're things that are really, that we're all discussing, that we're all struggling with. And so what I see happening is if a board member gives an opinion during a discussion, then there's a rebuttal immediately, right? And then so so what I see kind of things happening, there's a rebuttal, and then if the board member who made the first statement wants to then continue, then it could escalate more and more, right? And so far we haven't really escalated. So I'm not saying this is a very serious or a problem that happens all the time. This happens on occasion, especially when we engage in this discussion. So I'm just I wanted to bring that to our attention, that I think that there's a time and a place for arguments. That's during action items. Because if we're going to argue anything, there's a process for that, right? I, as a board member, if I want to argue one side of an issue or policy, then I'm given a certain amount of time to argue or to present. And then another board member may oppose me, well, they have their time to do it. And then there's a process, right? And we stick to the issue, we focus on the issue at hand. We don't attack each other personally. There's no name calling, there's no stigmatizing, there's no, emotions are not really high, right? We're not angry, we're not saying negative things and so forth. So I wanted to bring that to our attention. Also, there's no provoking and so forth. Also, when it comes to soliciting, reviewing feedback from the community, I would say that we need to respect, we need to be, we need to take seriously, validate everything that our community tells us, especially if we ask for their feedback, right? Rather than stigmatize them and divide and say, well, you're a vaxxer, you're an anti-vaxxer, and you guys are anti-vaxxers, and you guys are stupid and dumb, and you don't know what you're doing, and you know what I mean? That's an extreme, but I think if we do that, that's gonna divide our community, it's gonna divide our board, and it doesn't bode well on the board. So I just wanted to bring that up. We represent the whole community, even if the part of the community, if we disagree with their values and beliefs. We represent everybody. We're at large positions, so we represent everybody, and we have to take into account what they say, their feedback, their needs, right? Everybody's needs in the district, parents, teachers, everybody, they're all different, and we have to, as a board, we have to take that in and use that to make decisions and to develop policy. So we have to respect, again, and we have to be impartial to everybody's views. their opinions, and their needs. I would say that, you know, during the retreat, we reviewed the results from the thought exchange, and there was some things that we did that I wasn't too very proud of. All right, so and I'll leave it right there. And I don't like to see that. I would encourage the board to again, to be open-minded as our policy indicates, right? To use good manners, to use positive communication skills, and to work together as a team, right? And I know that we're all passionate, we're all committed to the work that we're doing. And I know we all have different personalities, and some of us are more expressive than others, and so forth and so on. I realize all that, but we do have policies in place that help us to govern in a respectful and efficient way. So I would just encourage our board members, especially when it comes to the hot topics, that we follow this policy. It's just going to help us to continue our strong board, our teamwork. It's going to help our board president. I would encourage us, let's engage in discussion. If we're going to argue, let's argue or debate the issues, right? But let's do it in an appropriate way. And let's not focus on personal stuff, but on the issue. And if you're for something and I'm for something else, let's talk about it, right? That's the only way we'll be able to really understand and come up with, our decisions. And good manners, good communication, those are all good things that anybody would expect from a board, and as our policy outlines. I would say let's engage our community for their feedback, right? Everybody, teachers, our community, parents, and so forth, and let's value that, and at least let's seek to understand the feedback. And so again, it's not a huge issue right now for me, but I just would like to, I'm addressing this, bringing this up so that it doesn't become an issue and it doesn't divide our board, and that we remain focused on the work at hand. So I just wanted to bring that up. And I guess that kind of covers a lot of the comments I made in the policy and also for the evaluation for the retreat. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Raymond. Those are good reminders for all of us. I know I can get a little wound up sometimes when I'm talking about a particular topic that I have passion about. And it's always good to step back and remember, first seek to understand and then be understood. And I did jump the agenda. I really need to focus on getting a bigger screen or something. I did jump in the agenda to this particular topic, but I wondered if there are any other board members who submitted comments who wish to provide some perspective on their comments, or we can just go to the approval portion of this particular policy. Okay. As is our practice and as policy allows us to do, we have the opportunity, and we will go back to reports. I'm not skipping over reports at all. We do have the opportunity to approve the board rating report for policy 1000.3.1 governing style, because there were not, there was for the most part agreement on the fact that the board is following all elements of the policy, whether we're partially compliant or fully compliant. And so I would entertain a motion for approval of the board rating report for policy 1000.3.1 governing style.
So moved.
Moved by Ryan.
Second.
Seconded by Graciela. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a comment or a question. A a lot of the behaviors that were described, I'm certainly I can identify when people are passionate about a subject. I'm not sure that I've witnessed most of these behaviors, and so I wonder if we could implement a practice where, you know, I don't know, we have like a red flag or something during meetings, and when somebody recognizes that a behavior is being that one of these behaviors is happening, because I haven't really recognized most of those outside of when folks get pretty passionate about something. And so if you know, if I'm doing one of those things, I certainly want to know. I think maybe I haven't recognized when maybe I have done that. If I have exhibited one of those behaviors. So I think in the moment, I guess, would be most helpful for me as an individual. Spray bottles would be a great, yeah. In the moment would be helpful for me to specifically call that out, because I'm not recognizing where, I'm not sure that I've witnessed most of these behaviors, certainly not in the last few months of meetings that we've had. So, you know, maybe it's me that's the problem, and maybe I'm just not recognizing it. I don't know, but I guess I would just call upon my fellow board members to call me out, I guess, if I'm exhibiting some of those behaviors. I don't think I am, but maybe I am. I don't know. I guess I could watch myself on TV, right? The videos, that would be a way that we could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you really want to go hardcore, just watch yourself on the of one of these meetings. You will rabbit down in a hole so fast it'll just shake your faith in humankind. I think we could certainly talk about that. Maybe there's a strategy that someone has for kind of calling to attention if somebody is getting a little heated, or the behavior that's being observed by a board member or being observed of a board member. And just maybe we can just say, let's call it out. Let's, you know, I think if it's taking, it's like, you know, disciplining an animal. If the puppy pees on your rug, you don't wait until tomorrow to rub its nose in it. You take care of it right away. And it's not to say that I'm comparing board members to puppies peeing on rugs, but I think if you observe something and it makes you uncomfortable, or if you think that it should be dealt with in a different manner, I would hope that board members would feel comfortable enough in saying something. But we could get one of those little ice fishing tip up flags, you know, when the fish bites the bait, the little flag tips up. We could put one of those on everybody's table, or one of those little buttons that you got from Staples or something.
Graciela, good question. At the retreat, did you notice that when we were reviewing the thought exchange results, that as a board, we were ridiculing, laughing at some of the responses when it came to the responses referring to more time during the summer, more time with family, the vacations kind of plans messed up. I don't know if you picked up on that, but as a board, we were laughing and having a good time. And that's why I made the comment that, are these results legitimate? Are they actual results from our community? And I did make the statement, because I was trying to address what was going on, but we continued to laugh and have a good time with the results, which was very disappointing for me. So that was at the board retreat, and I don't know if you saw that or anybody else saw that, but I'm a counselor by training, so I'm really keen on interpersonal communication and body movement, all that kind of stuff, the psychology. So I could be a little bit more sensitive to those things than other people, just because of my background and training. So
thank you, Raymond. Okay, we do have on the table a motion and a second for approval of the board rating report for policy 1000.3.1 governing style. Is there further discussion?
I like Graciela's thing, but I'm not sure what we're gonna do. If I'm seeing something, is it okay if I just call it out? That's what I heard you say, Martha, just call it out during that meeting? Or do we deal with it in a different way? Because I know our policy, I forget which one it is that I think the board president speaks to that individual or the individuals involved, and then, I don't know, there's a process there, so.
Yeah, that policy really is written for discipline issues. I don't know that this rises to that. But
Well, if it's a violation of a policy, it would be the process for that, right?
yeah,
So that's why I bring it up, is if somebody is violating this policy, then that other policy would be the process for dealing with it. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what to do, because I don't want to engage in any arguments or detract from the conversation or the board meeting. That's not efficient use of our time or even appropriate. So
yeah. Trevor.
Barb Fiskus and I were able to look on board documents, and we believe that there is a document that we could use at the end of our meetings to assess how we've been regarding interpersonal dynamics. I would be happy to engage and show that to you on Thursday when we meet one-on-one, and then perhaps we could bring that back to the full board. So that might be a way after the meeting or before the meeting concludes for the board to reflect, was there anything in this meeting that met A, B, C, D, and have the short conversation then versus the calling out at the moment. But that would certainly be an option. So I would just propose that you and I have a conversation, Martha, and perhaps bring back some suggestions to the board next week.
We could do that.
Okay.
We could.
And I appreciate Raymond making sure that we don't lose this in the process, that it's one thing to surface it, but if we don't certainly bring it back around, then it could get lost again. So thank you, Director Navarro.
Yeah, we have more than enough going on in our lives. It's easy for things to fall off to the side, doesn't it? Okay, thank you, Raymond, for surfacing this. We will bring back something for the board to react to at next week's meeting. Would that be okay, Raymond? Okay, good. Thank you. So is there further discussion on this action in front of us? Okay, seeing none. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Beckett,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Ms. Villanueva,
Yes.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now, if we can go back to C1, which is where I thought I was before my eyes jumped. We did conduct our retreat, not last week, but the week before, I think. And it was a full day with a lot of topics. And it was suggested that we conduct an evaluation following the retreat. So board members completed quick SurveyMonkey, and we had some comments surface that I'm wondering if the board members who made those comments, I'm going to apologize here really quick because the crew is about ready to erupt, I think. If anyone who made comments on that retreat survey wanted to elaborate on their comments or discuss them at this meeting?
Yes, I can do that. And I just want to say that I've already outlined my concerns, so there's no need to rehash that. I do want to say that it was great to be in person, to be with all board members and the superintendent and his team. It was great to do that, be in person, and I enjoyed that. We haven't been together for a long time, and I really enjoyed being with my fellow board members and the team. I would say that I think when it comes to like the school calendar, the school calendar and so forth, those type of topics, a facilitator we might benefit from having a facilitator, and because there's so much that's so complex that we found out, right? It's not just putting together a calendar; it's everything that we discussed. So that's just one thing that I would be in favor of, is having a facilitator next time around. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Any other thoughts or comments from board members? Ryan,
If I may,
you
President,
really don't have to raise your hand.
it's an instinct. I'm sorry. First off, thank you to you and of course Barb for her help and Trevor for sending the survey out afterwards. As the newbie, I found it very helpful to kind of gauge where everyone else is in these conversations, especially since we are not in person. And you all know my thoughts about that. But I appreciate getting an insight as to where we are with time management and with efficiency. I think we can always do better. And I think that the opportunities with specific items for having a managed conversation with an outside facilitator would be very, very beneficial. For regular conversation, I think, if we were meeting in person, it would just be way more conversational, and we would probably have a better feel for everything. Again, I'm saying that as the new person who is still dealing with the learning curve. But regardless, I appreciate the fact that everyone took the time to fill out the survey so that we could all have that information. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And I know that one of the items that we talked about at the retreat was when the board will go back into in-person meetings. My recollection, and I could be misremembering, but my recollection is that we were going to solicit input from staff, but that we kind of look at this again at the end of February, which like tomorrow, at the end of February, when the spike has started to decline a little bit. Now, I could be misremembering, and if that's the case, I hope somebody gives me a memory check on it. But I know that that's important, that we actually get back to in-person meetings. I just want to make sure that we're safe and that we do, when we make that move, we're not positioning ourselves so that people have to guess from one week to the next whether we're going to be in person or not. So is there objection to waiting until the surge kind of dissipates a little bit and revisiting this maybe at the last Monday meeting of this month? We have a meeting on the 7th, and then the business meeting, and then I think there's a meeting at the end of the month. Correct, Barb? Yeah.
Yeah, February 28th.
Well, that is the end of the month, isn't it? Ryan, I'm going to break you of that hand raising.
It's the hand again. I'm sorry. My objection is that, this is completely outside of public health guidance that's provided by the Department of Health and the governor's proclamation. There is absolutely no legal reason that we should not be meeting in person right now. There's no restrictions other than masking in person, even on social distancing or on capacity of a room beyond fire capacity. I mean, there's absolutely no reason we couldn't be meeting in the boardroom at Central Services and having our regular meetings as the board has always done. So right now, what is happening is the board is operating outside of public health guidance, above and beyond, signaling to the community that we know something that everyone else doesn't. And it, in my opinion, doesn't make us look good considering what is going on a daily basis inside our schools. I think we should be meeting in person as long as schools are in person. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Ryan. Given that, perhaps we should revisit this sooner rather than later. I'm not sure what new regulations have been put in place from the Department of Health. My understanding was that the governor's emergency proclamation is still in place, and under that proclamation, we have that option. I know that there are many other school boards that are still meeting in virtual mode. So I know staff has some recommendations that they've worked up, and perhaps we should put this on the agenda for next Monday.
Yes, Martha, I'd like to see that as soon as possible as well. My argument has been that if we're going to have our teachers and staff and administrators in the schools, then as a board, we can also do that and be an example to them. And they're being exposed to whatever's out there, but as Ryan mentioned, the restrictions have been eased enough that we can send kids to school and staff and everybody. So I don't see a reason for us not to be able to meet in person. And I'd be willing to agree to just business meetings to get started that eventually go full, our Monday meetings as well. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Raymond. Okay, well, let's put this on the agenda for next Monday. Trevor, could staff be ready with their recommendations for next Monday?
We can come forward with the information that was requested. If you would like a recommendation, we could prioritize those. What we would have for you are locations and capacity of each of those locations if you're thinking about a bigger venue. So certainly could prioritize those for you.
Okay. All right, so we'll look for that on next Monday's agenda. Okay, anything else from the retreat or the survey following the retreat? Okay. All right, thank you all for taking the time to have this discussion today. And for staff sitting through it with us. We very much appreciate the partnership that we have with administration in this district. And we are a team, and sometimes some part of the team goes off on a tangent, and everybody's being very kind and gracious in allowing us to do that. So next on the agenda is the superintendent's update. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Rice. And Jewel thanks you as well. I think you remember that we always work frantically to update the numbers that come to us around 4:30. So you switching things around was actually very helpful. The January character word, here we are at the end of the month, inquisitive, given to examination or investigation, inclined to ask questions. So it's obviously the perfect word for the board starting here in January. The trait is that of critical thinker and problem solver. In Spanish, inquisitivo, dado a indagar o investigar, inclinado a hacer preguntas. Característica es pensador crítico y solucionador de problemas. All right, now we'll go forward with a couple of reports. Obviously, we have some of our schools that are in remote learning. So let's update our COVID report here, both with Jewel and Stacy. I'll turn it over. Stacy, you can determine the order.
Okay, Trevor, that's great. Thank you. Good evening, board. Just to show you where we are statistically here over the last 2 weeks, quite a few of our schools are in double digits as far as quarantining. I don't think this comes as a shock to anybody based on the numbers that Jewel's going to show us here in a few minutes. Next slide, please, Barb. And when we look at the district totals for the last couple of weeks, we've had 504 positives, 183 staff positives. We got over 1,000 students quarantined, or 7.1% of the students. And these numbers, these are the ones we have. It doesn't mean that they haven't been tested positive somewhere else. So just kind of take that into mind. Next slide, please, Barb. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing the last 14 days at our site, and you need to remember that we were closed the first week of COVID, first week of remote, just due to the fact that we did not have tests that were available to test our students and families and staff. But again, we're still seeing about a 30% positivity rate, even as late as today. So we did go ahead because of the 5-day quarantine period. We did, or isolation period, I should say, we did indeed provide a testing service for our staff this Saturday because a lot of them were landing on Saturday, Sunday for that 5-day. And we wanted to ensure that we could get them back if at all possible. Next slide, please, Barb. And just to give you kind of the weekly view, the 17th through the 23rd, again, the site was closed, but as you can see, as far as staff and student confirmed cases, we continue to climb. And I think that is it. Any questions that I may answer?
Any questions for Stacy?
Okay, then I'll go ahead and take the opportunity to introduce my colleague, Jewel Brumley. Jewel.
Thank you, Stacy. So our rates are actually starting to come down a little from last week. If you see the last 3 days over the weekend, the case numbers per Saturday, Sunday, and today are very small compared to the end of the week last week. But we also started the week last week a little smaller in case numbers. So overall, for the week, we were a little bit down from the week before. So our rate per 100,000 is 45.15, which again, you see it climbing up. But you notice the incremental steps in the beginning of January were pretty large. The incremental step up this week was slightly smaller. So that's a good indication there that we might be peaking. The 7-day rate, again, same thing, a smaller incremental step up, but this should hopefully be our peak week, and then we'll start down. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated. January, we had 15,000 cases so far of unvaccinated and about 4,000, a little less than 4,000 vaccinated people with positive COVID cases. That January kind of dwarfs December's numbers, so changes the scale of the graph. Zip code rates, they update those every 2 weeks, so we're due for an update the middle of this week. So hopefully we'll see those go down a little or stay even for this week. Hospitalizations have climbed. We hit a high of 79. Today's rate, though, we have 74 instead of 79. So hopefully it continues down. Hospitalizations by vaccination rate. 37 versus 144, vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And then this has not been updated since yesterday. We had 5 extra deaths yesterday, which is unfortunate. But so we have we're running actually about a 20% vaccinated versus unvaccinated rate. So 20% vaccinated versus 80% unvaccinated of deaths. Hospitalizations, last week we had a real spike in the 0 to 11-year-olds. If you look, we have 12 0 to 11-year-olds last week that were in the hospital, and then all the other rates have gone up also, but the 0 to 11 was, they may not be hospitalized in Yakima, they may be over at Children's, but from here, that really spiked up last week. School age cases as of last week. Stacy has a better update on this, but the numbers are fairly large. I can tell you today's numbers from the weekend. Last week we had over 1,000 K-5 students or K-12 students that tested positive during a couple of the days, the highest days of our peak. And today, after 3 days in the weekend, it was still high. It's 500 new cases of 0 to 19-year-olds, but it's come down, so that's good. School age data over time. Again, I'll get this updated tomorrow when they send it out. They usually send it out on Tuesdays. Our vaccination rates, the thing that has changed here is this is overall for our whole population. So that's kind of the same, but it has changed a little because they are now including 5-year-olds and up in the vaccination rate. So go to the next slide, please. You notice the comparison graph is 12 and up because that's how it was reported in September, but the graph 5 and up, 5 years old and up, is the number of people initiating the vaccine rate in Yakima County. So the state and the county has updated their vaccination rates to include 5-year-olds and up. Total population, 56%. So we're creeping up on that. And then 5-year-olds and up, 60%. So we are moving up, and changing to the 5-year-olds and up really changed some of the overall numbers of how we're counting how many people are fully vaccinated. And then the forecast, I'm happy to say that this week's numbers kind of hit in between the forecast and the upper error, margin of error on the statistics. So we're right in line where I thought we would be. I didn't have to adjust this week at all based on our numbers. And if you look there, we're kind of leveling off and then should start declining, hopefully, if we follow the trends quite quickly. Anyone have questions?
Any questions for Jewel or Stacy?
Martha, I have a question, and I'm making sure not to raise my hand.
Thank you. We'll tie them to your chair for a few weeks.
Just give me some time. Jewel, thank you as always for the data. I know a few weeks ago when we were talking about the ramp up with Omicron numbers, there was some discussion, and you alluded to it in one of your reports about comparing numbers between the South Africa numbers and the Great Britain numbers based on summer or winter. How has that settled out as far as those places peaking and or not?
So the UK has declined like South Africa has, but they're declining at a similar rate, but there's a difference in the age of people in South Africa versus the UK. And so that changes it a little. They don't decline quite as fast as South Africa does, but Denmark, the UK, and Germany have all kind of peaked. France is still going up. But so they're declining, they're in winter, and so they're coming down. So hopefully we will also.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I don't know if you can answer this, but last year about this time, the numbers started to go up and we were closing schools, shutting down. And this year, we're not doing that. So I'm just wondering what's going on. Why aren't we? The hospitalizations are still up. The deaths are going up. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around that. Does it have to do with the variant or other issues? I don't know if you could help me with that one.
Well, while Jewel is getting ready to answer that, I would just add that we do have now vaccines that we didn't have previously. So there has been that opportunity that wasn't afforded at the same time last year. And then it's all obviously it's not just adults, it's all the way down to our younger students. So that has added a different layer for us. And then with Omicron, we know that it hasn't been as serious, although we're taking it very serious because it depends on underlying conditions. But I do think it's more of the factor of where we're at with as far as access to vaccines. I don't know if you have a different opinion or more information, Jewel.
No, I agree. Omicron is slightly less severe in most people, but is still severe if you have any other kind of conditions. The data of having more cases, the percentage of cases that become severe is still very low because of the variant. Also, the peak we had, like we've hit 79 cases that are people in the hospital, but we have very few in the ICU for that, where we were maxing out the intensive care at a much higher rate than we are now. So yes, there's a lot of cases and it's really a lot of community spread. But with the vaccines and with people, like we have a lot more testing going on now than we did before. And so people know better to isolate and understand that better. And so that's helping. Stacy, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I just comment that the guidance from the CDC and from DOH has changed dramatically as the research has taken place, which has allowed us different levels of flexibility. Additionally, at this time last year, we had just initiated testing at all. We had just begun starting to test and begin working with scheduling vaccination clinics, et cetera. So this was the month last year that really things started to ramp up, and we did start going back to in-person learning in a the name escapes me, it's hard to believe. Whatever type of model we went into last spring at this point in time. And so it was all kind of coming together with the numbers. Thank you, Rob. Hybrid model. Last into February and into March. And so that's the only thing I would add at this point in time.
Just a second question. What can you tell us in anticipation of the AB2 variant?
So the AE2, they've said that it's 1.5 times more transmissible, but it's not any more severe as far as what they can tell right now as Omicron. So it may be transmitted more, but it doesn't give you the severe part as much. But that's really early data because there's there's an Omicron 2 and an Omicron 0.3. And they're just trying to study those right now.
And my final is just a comment. I want to thank you guys, Jewel and Stacy, for all your work. I couldn't imagine being in your shoes for the last 2.5 years and having to deal with the pandemic. And I just wanted to commend you for your work and for putting up with all our questions and concerns. And just, you guys are doing an amazing job. So just wanted to commend you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. This may be a question for our next conversation when we talk about meetings and how we transition. But my question is with, and I'm glad you asked about the newest variant, Raymond. So that was one of the questions that I had. Is there any case law or precedence for what a district's liability is if we decided to just keep schools open, completely change what our course has been thus far, decide to keep schools open, and if a student contracts COVID while they're at school, what liability is there for the district, assuming we're taking the protocols, we're requiring masks, we're social distancing, all of those things, and chances are high still, right, that so somebody could get COVID. So what liability is there to the district if we decide to stay open, not go to remote, assuming staffing's a whole other issue, right? But assuming staffing's not an issue, what is the liability to the district? That might be a bigger question we can answer right now, but.
Yeah, I'd have to say I do not have an answer to that question. I would have to defer to Bob No.
Part of my question, I guess I don't necessarily need an answer right now, because I know that there's, there may not be any precedent set yet, but I was part of had the privilege to be part of a scholarship review committee, and there was 41 scholarship applications that I reviewed, and one of the essay questions was around COVID, and every single student commented that COVID had some kind of adverse effect to their mental health. And so it was really sad to see that universally. And it was a small sample. It was only 41, but it's, statistically valid, I think. And it was just really unfortunate to see that it was such an adverse impact to students' health. And so just began to think about, how we move forward with all of there's always going to be another variant, right? We probably are never going to get rid of COVID, at least not for quite some time. And so I think that might be a question we might consider looking at, and what happens if, a kid gets sick and dies, and, will they sue the district, and what is the district's liability in that?
I think that's certainly a question we could ask the insurance pool people. They may have some sense for that.
I haven't seen any guidance from WASDA about that topic. Have you seen anything like that, Martha?
I haven't, but I can check. It's a good question. Thank you, Graciela. And Trevor did type into the chat a reminder that for our recent foray into remote, it's primarily been because of staffing issues, because we just don't have the necessary staff to provide for the safety and security of our students. So there are a lot of moving parts to this particular puzzle, and I applaud staff for making sure that all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that we're keeping folks as safe as we can during these times. Anything else on your report, Trevor?
The last item was simply just an update on remote learning and in-person update. First, though, I really appreciate the thoughtful questions tonight. There's just been so many wonderful entry points to share what's happening. I will say that it's been very difficult the last couple of weeks you talk about moving parts, but trying to create opportunities for all of our students, all of our schools to be in session, recognizing that some have to be in remote because of staffing issues. So compliments to, much like Ernesto talking about his staff, thank you all of our leadership here in the district for being able to contribute in a way across the board that keeps us functioning as much as possible. The report that I would share about in-person learning, is I walked downstairs and both of my kids were in classes this morning and they made them on time. So that's the first good point at 2 different schools. So they were attending, at least as far as I could tell. So I did have some monitoring today. I have heard from principals, and this is unfortunately do not have the quantitative data to share with you at this point. So it's all anecdotal, but in speaking with principals and teachers, there is a report of much more involvement as far as attendance than in previous years. I see Kathy nodding right there. Engagement has been up. Don't mistake any of these statements though for everything is sunshine and rainbows or roses. This is, we know that in-person learning is where we want to be, and that's what we're striving for. But I do commend our staff across the district for looking at the bright side and making sure that they are finding the positive in what we're doing. And the switch to remote for all of our schools has been much more seamless. The training, including of our littlest learners to get on, went very well. I think I will go ahead and defer a little bit to Kathy. She's nodding so much. So Kathy, you work very closely with our principals. Can you tell us what you're hearing as well?
Oh, there I go. What I would say is that one of our principals in particular was talking about how they actually had better attendance in remote that week than they had in the previous months of in-person.
Wow.
So they had more students actually attending. The principals generally have been very, very pleased with the transition to remote, that it was, of course, much smoother this year. So I would tell you that, yes, they are. It's going well as far as the elementary schools. I can speak to that. And I would just want to echo that our staff, our educators in the buildings, our principals, they are working so incredibly hard. I couldn't even quantify it to tell you what's kind of going on there, as far as everybody pitching in, doing whatever they can in whatever role to support, and they're pretty tired too. I mean, they're doing an amazing job. I would say what I'm watching, they are my heroes for sure.
Well said, Kathy. I appreciate that perspective. And not only do we have staff members covering for each other, but we have administrators that are doing the same thing at the leadership end. We have people going to other buildings to support, and it's been interesting and humbling to see the work that has been happening to benefit our students. So that's pretty much the anecdotal report. I will just, my dogs are going crazy here, Martha. I'm gonna have to, there you go, pass that bottle. So I will just close out my report and pass it back to you, Martha. I'm not in the I don't have a squirt bottle or anything like that. So I will though give you an update next week on what's looking like as far as how it's going in the buildings that have gone back to remote this week. I'm proud that we were able to switch those that were in remote back to in-person, and that the buildings that had to go from in-person to remote really understood that it's for the collective good of our district and making sure that all students have an opportunity to be in person. The support of the community has been, and I know we have a couple of members that are watching this now, I've really appreciated the way the community has understood what's going on, while we have some people that certainly have been upset in moving some buildings to remote. For the most part, we've seen an understanding and empathy for trying to keep things functioning at a time where staffing constraints are causing big issues.
Thank you, Trevor. If I could pass this through the internet lines, I would do that for you. Okay, one question before we move on. The decision for next week will be made when?
So great question. The decisions that we make are made Friday morning. And the reason that we wait until Friday morning is we need to have all of the information about where people are as far as staffing. And that is the time where we know people, for the most part, who will be back and who won't be back. And then we get that out by, I think by about noon, we start sending that information to staff, to administration, and then it's released to the community by 1 o'clock. I wish it could be earlier. We would like to make that call by Wednesday, but with people going in and out of quarantine, so to speak, it's just not feasible for us to wait that to do that on a Wednesday. So that's why it happens so late in the week.
Okay. Well, it still gives parents and families the weekend to make any arrangements that they need to make. So thank you.
We're trying to be proactive in that regard. We'd like to be more proactive, but that's as proactive as we can get the Friday before. We still do keep open the reactive possibility of perhaps switching a school to remote on a dime, given the complexities of staffing. So at any time during the week that could happen, but that's actually what we're trying to avoid by taking the more proactive approach.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, moving on to our action items for this afternoon. Oops. The first one is permission to pay Running Start program fall quarter fees. Dr. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Board President Rice, members of the board. Thank you for being with us this evening. I'm here this evening just to ask that you grant permission to pay Yakima Valley Community College for our students who participated in the Running Start program during fall quarter of the 2021-2022 school year. The total cost is $441,142.74. And we had approximately 190 students across our district that participated in that program this fall, earning anywhere from 5 to 15 college credits during that quarter. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Rodriguez? Okay. The board is being asked to grant permission to pay Yakima Valley College for Running Start program tuition and fees for the fall quarter of 2021-22 school year in the amount of $441,142.74.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Beckett,
Aye.
Mr. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Ms. Villanueva,
Yes.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval to sign the contract with Castle and Associates, Inc. Mr. Murrieta.
Thank you. The requested action is that the Board of Directors grants authority to Superintendent Green to sign the contract with Castle and Associates, Inc. for the AC Davis School Auditorium Upgrade Project, once we have the contractor's insurance and bonds. This remodel of the high school auditorium could cover all of our campus schools. The financial impact would be $9,332,000. The background information. To continue upon the modernization of AC Davis High School, the auditorium will undergo a complete remodel. The district's architect, Loughborough Welch Architects, on December 16, 2021, accepted 3 bids on behalf of the Yakima School District for the AC Davis High School Auditorium Upgrade Project. The general contractors submitting bids on the projects were as follows: Chevronel Construction Company, Total Site Services, and Castle and Associates, Inc. All bids were properly submitted and were found to be in compliance with the instructions to bidders and the bid requirements. The total base bid of the lowest responsible bidder was Castle and Associates out of Redmond, Washington at $9,297,000. Loughborough Welch has recommended that the district entered into a contract with Castle and Associates, Inc. for the upgrade projects with the addition of alternates to the bid amount, the total being $9,332,000.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there questions for Anthony on this? Okay. The board is being asked to grant authority for Superintendent Green to sign the contract with Castle and Associates, Inc. for the AC Davis High School Auditorium Upgrade Project, once we have the contractors, insurance, and bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, seconded by Norm. Is there discussion? Go ahead, Norm.
No discussion.
No discussion?
No.
You're ready to get it done,
Let's
huh?
get her done.
Okay. All right. If we have no discussion on this, Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Beckett,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
And I with exclamation points.
Mr. Navarro Jr.,
Double, triple, yes, or aye.
Ms. Villanueva,
Yes, yes, yes.
and President Rice.
I with the cherry on top.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know this has been a long time coming, but maybe the wait will make the outcome that much sweeter. Looking forward to it. Mr. Superintendent, do we have a need for executive session?
We do not have a need for executive session this evening.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
No, there is not.
Board members? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there with us. I know we went a little longer than we normally do, but I appreciate the thoughtful conversation that we had tonight and the input that was provided by all. So thank you very much. I hope those of you who are a little under the weather recover quickly. We need you, but we need you in fighting shape. So this is probably Mother Nature's way of telling you it's time to slow down a little bit. Thank you all for your time tonight. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to Barb, and thank you to Director Gonzalez as well for his support tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.